So let's jump into flow control in C++. Flow control basically means how your program decides what to do next. Think of it like telling your computer, if this happens, do that, otherwise do something else. We'll cover if, else, else if, switch, and loops. Firstly, I'd like to talk about the if statement. So let's say you had a couple of conditions that you wanted to be true, and if those conditions are met, you wanted a certain section of the program to run. So in this case, we have age. If age is equal to or greater than 18, the code inside of the parentheses will get executed. And if age is less than 18, then the condition is not met. And that means that our program inside of the parentheses will just not get executed. So let's do an example. So I declared a variable age, then I prompt the user to enter the age. So if the user age is greater or equal to 18, then all I can do is display to the user that they are an adult. You are an adult. Simply put, if the user's age is greater than or equal to 18, it will be displayed to the user that they are an adult, and if not, the program inside of the parentheses, code inside of the parentheses, just doesn't get executed. So let's test it out. Let's do Control Shift P. Let's do main.exe. Let's enter the age 4. Nothing gets displayed to the user. So let's try again. Let's do main.exe. Let's do 18 this time. There you see, right here, you are an adult. So let's talk a bit about else statements. Else statements usually get paired with if statements. So if age is greater than or equal to 18, access will be granted to the user. And if that condition is not true, let's say age is less than 18, access will be denied to the user. So what I'm basically saying is, if the first condition is true, we run the program inside the parentheses of the if statement. And if the condition is false, the program inside of the else parentheses gets executed. So let's do an example of else statements. Keep in mind that else statements need to be evaluated against an if statement, so they come in pairs. If, else. If the condition is not true, our else statement gets executed. Whatever we put in our else statement is what gets executed. So if age is less than 18, else, and what do we want done? We want to deny access to the user. So let's do access denied. Let's do end line. Let's do Control Shift B. So what happens if the user is younger than 18? Let's do main.exe. Let's do for access should be denied. So that's an example of else statements. Remember, the golden rule is else statements cannot be used without if statements. Let's talk about else if. Else if in C++ is only used when we have more than one condition that needs to be evaluated. If we have more than one decision that needs to be made, a simple if-else statement will not suffice. I can give you an example of that. Imagine you checking school grades. You write a program to check school grades. So if mark a 75 upwards, it's a pass with a distinction. But if mark is 50 upwards, it's a pass. Else, it's a fail. Now imagine you evaluate the 75. So you say if mark is equal to or greater than 75, it's a distinction. Anything below 75 would be a fail by default because the else statement is going to return a fail. That is exactly what's going to happen. So that's where our else if statement comes in. So if mark is equal to and greater than 75, it's a distinction. Else if mark is equal to and greater than 50, it's a pass. Else, it's a fail. It's as simple as that. But I'll do an example of it shortly so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the example of the else if statement I spoke about earlier. We can do main.exe. Let's do 65. And now we get to pass. Let's do main.exe. Let's do 75. And it's a pass with distinction. Let's do main.exe. Let's do 49. It should be a fail. Okay, now what happens if we remove this else if statement? We cannot use a simple if else statement because with an if else statement, only the if statement gets evaluated, and if it returns false, the else statement gets executed. So now watch what happens. Let's do Control Shift B. Let's do main dot let's do main.exe. So let's return 65 again. Watch what happens. It's gonna take it as a fail. So that's why we use the else if statement. So this is it for flow control part 1. I want to do a separate video where I'm going to cover switch statements, for loops, while loops, and do while loops, and make that flow control part 2.